Welcome everyone to the Piero Effect. Before we jump in, I just want to ask a quick question. Have you ever noticed that when you're speaking about what you do, you know what you do, but the moment that someone asks you to explain it, the words either disappear completely or they just fall flat. Maybe your story feels really important to you, but every time that you try to tell it, it doesn't quite land the way that you want it to, and you don't quite know how to sell the offer that you have. Well, that is exactly what today's conversation is all about. For those of you that are new here, my name is Heather. I am the founder of Wilder Profits, and I work with women, mainly stay-at-home moms and homeschooling moms who are building a business online, and they want their message to feel clear and confident and natural and not salesy and not forced. So today, I want to introduce you to someone who has literally shifted the way I think about storytelling. I met Piero back in October inside another school community. He was actually doing a storytelling session there. And what stood out to me wasn't the why storytelling matters, because we hear that all the time, how important that part is, but it was the how to actually get your story straight and how to communicate in a way that people actually feel it and how they want to respond to you. Piero has led global sales teams, coached founders on communication and influence, and he's helped entrepreneurs understand the role that storytelling plays in business and trust and momentum. His work isn't about scripts, but about leaning more into who you really are and how to actually get your story out there so that people want to talk with you more. And I'm really excited to have him here today. But I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our co-host and our supporting community. So a huge thank you again to John from Thriveline Circle. He is co-hosting this session with us again today. And I also want to say thank you to Lanice from Rooted to Rise in Faith. She has also been a wonderful supporting community and part of what makes today possible. And I really appreciate both of you for helping me out with this. So with that, I want to turn it over to Piero. And Piero, I'm really glad that you are here with us today.
Likewise. So thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Um, I'm going to start with a bit about my story so you actually know who is this guy that's just appeared on your Zoom on this, what day is it? Friday, on this Friday. And I want to say thank you for actually giving me your guys' times. I really value you investing your time into me. So I'm going to make this session as worthwhile as possible for you. So you guys can actually take away and implement this stuff into your own life, into your own business. And from what I understand, a lot of you guys have your own businesses, or maybe you're working with some offers. What I'm going to teach you today, for a fact, will help you sell more. And I think all of us want to do that. Now, in terms of how, before I just go into myself and my story, in terms of how I like to structure this, I like to make this session as engaging as possible so you guys can get more out of this. So I'm going to be asking for volunteers. I'm going to be going back and forth. If you do not raise your hands up and we have awkward silence, I'm the type of guy that will pick on one of you. So I'm just warning you. And if you have no camera, you're then even more likely to be picked on. So just a little heads up because I like to have this as engaged as possible. So if we're all good with that, I'll then just go into a bit of my story and who is this guy on Zoom. And it's actually really cool because I've got a friend, Tony, that's known me for years and years now. So really good to see you here. But my story properly starts, I'd say, August last year when I moved to Dubai, because I very clearly remember, and I don't know if any of you guys have done this, but I remember moving to the Middle East and I knew absolutely no one there. Tony can attest to this. I decided to stay on the Palm, and I remember just like opening the window and just looking at this man-made structure, this man-made island, which is the Palm, and just thinking, oh my God, it's absolutely insane what we can do if we actually just put our imagination to it. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm sure all of us have had one of those moments late at night when we look out the window. We just, maybe it's a skyline, maybe it's just nature itself, and we think to ourselves, holy shit, it's insane that that's actually possible. And that's the feeling that I had in Dubai, which I thought was really cool because it set me on a trajectory to actually just decide who I wanted to be in this life and then really just live up to that person. So I basically went from knowing pretty much no one there to being connected with the best of the best in this online space. So a bunch of my friends, it's very normal for me to be in rooms now where I'm surrounded with people that make $500,000 a month, $1 million a month, $3 million a month. This like absolutely insane levels. The skills I'm going to teach you today, or like some of it, I used to like this is not even a joke. Walk into the Formula One, the grand finale, without a pass in Abu Dhabi, in like in the Emirates. No pass, no tickets, just pure ability to storytell, ability to have like or just demonstrate confidence. And I want you guys to take some of this home today and actually implement this into your lives. As Heather said, I've managed teams. I now work privately with very top founders across the world. I work and help them with their confidence. I help them with how they tell craft narratives, aka how other people see them and how they see themselves. Today, I want this to be really focused around storytelling and helping you guys sell your offer in a better capacity. I'm very excited. So, are we all excited to learn something? Yes? Okay. Heather, shall I do that lovely or horrible thing where I pick on someone to tell a story? Because we can start like that.
Hey, we could totally start that way.
Should we start that way? Okay. We'll start with a bit of storytelling because I think often what I hear is that firstly, it can be difficult to differentiate ourselves online, and being able to craft a narrative and craft a story is something that is actually very unique. And even a lot of these top founders, a lot of these top people that I hang out with ultimately are quite dull. Maybe they're not dull, but they come across dull. And the reason I bring that up is because the ability to tell a fantastic story is something that can really draw people in. And when you want to sell things online, we sell via capturing people's attention. So if you guys can tell a great story, we can capture people's attention, and attention is the new form of currency, so we can make money. We're going to start this by either someone volunteering or me picking on someone. And I want a very or like fairly brief story. It can be about absolutely anything. It can be about going to the grocery store this morning. It can be about, I don't know, a recent birthday party. It can be about absolutely anything. But I want someone to volunteer to tell a story and to really focus on the actual skill of telling a captivating story that makes everyone in this room lean in. Who would like to volunteer? Or am I going to have to pick? Well, now everyone's nervous. Everyone's on the edge of their street. John, are you going to go?
I'll jump in. Yes,
Yeah, do
great
it.
stuff.
Okay, so John, what I want you to do, don't make it super, super long because if it's like 20
Okay,
minute ramble, then I'm gonna forget it. But
sure.
what I would like you to do is tell a story that you believe can actually draw people in. Focus on the skill itself. Every single other person in this room, please pay attention to how John tells his story. What are things that he will do or does that is good in terms of telling the story? What are areas or what are things that he can do to improve, because this is a space. The reason we're doing this session is so we can all improve at least 1%, 5%, 10% in this skill. So take
Okay,
notes, everyone that's not John, and we'll give John the floor.
super. I'm going to try and wing it as best I can. So here we
Amazing.
go. Okay, unscripted. It was
Yep.
another Monday morning, and I was sitting in my sales office just as usual. I was the first one in the room, the last one out of the sales office. It had been months that I'd been looking at that phone and just staring at my leads and my screen, thinking to myself, how could I turn this month's sales budget around? The industry had changed so much in the last 8 months. I was looking on the figures at the board and I knew that I was way far behind my budget. Just then, my sales manager walked in. He gave me that side slanty look and grunted a good morning at me, knowing that I was putting in all of the effort so that I could try to turn my sales figures around without any success whatsoever. The team soon followed in a loud rambling noise, and everyone was jovial for a Monday morning, drinking their coffees and sipping and joking about what they had been up to on the weekend. We began then with our normal Monday morning sales meeting, and things just seemed so mundane. There was no spirit, there was no connection, and I looked around the room and I thought, where's the leadership around here? It had been months that I'd been struggling in the sales team, having previously worked in the same sort of environments that was so vibrant. I just felt that we had lost the spark completely. It was time for me to make the shift. So I looked down at my watch and I thought to myself, John, do you know what? You've been saving up now for the last 3 months, taking 50% of your earnings and putting them into fixed deposits accounts so that you could start even just a small venture and break away from the mundane 9 to 5, working so many hours extra overtime and being unrecognized, not hitting your commission targets and going home empty handed. that was when I decided to finally make the decision. I got back to my upline and I said I was ready. I purchased my first domain. I started with some brand direction and strategy, and I purchased the domain Thriveline Legacy. It's now been just on 10 months, and I've broken even on my investments. I've doubled my revenue. I've created 11 passive income streams. I've started a tech community, and I'm using the funds that I'm creating to slowly generate direction for my full scope marketing team. I have two teams of developers, and I'm going forward into 2026 with new direction so that I can focus on doing not only the high ticket master resale rights and affiliate training and programs, but also really focus on doing real corporate deals in a new and powerful environment. Okay, that's all I've got off the top of my head.
Awesome. Really good story, John. Thank you. And I appreciate you for stepping up and sharing that. Okay, now to everyone else before I go into him. And this is a safe space. This is like, this all comes from a place of love, all from us wanting to improve, because I want you guys to get the most out of this hour. What is something that John did good, and what's something that John could have done or could have done slightly better or could have improved? I'm putting this to you guys. I'm going to have to pick on other people and have a long, awkward silence.
I think John is great at showing up with like authority and confidence. What I think he could do better is knowing some of his backstory, is putting more of the emotional connection into it. He talks about things that he sees and hears, but he doesn't really talk about how he's feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Magda and Tommy, no, it's just Magda and Tommy, but do you have any feedback?
Yes.
Lovely to meet you.
I like John's confidence, and I will agree with Heather that he could put more emotion in that, that people can feel what he went through. I fully agree with that. But I love his confidence. He's amazing.
Tony, thanks for that, by the way. How do we dial this up from a good story to a fantastic story?
Well, thank you, Piero, and thank you, John, as well, for that story off the top of your head. Do you know, when you were telling that story, I was picturing the sequence of events in my mind's eye. But you know what I would have loved to have had at the start is some kind of preamble just to draw me in, because it took a few moments as I sort of found my way into your story. Once I was in there, I was with you all the way. But if I just had that little preamble just to sort of set the tone as to where we were going to go, and almost like a little bit of foreshadowing or some kind of something along those kind of lines, would have just got me into your lane that much quicker. But thank you for that great story off the top of your head.
Wonderful. I'm taking notes as we go. Thank you, Tony.
Awesome. Christy? Or Chris? Yeah. Everyone's going to get picked on, so no point in hiding.
That's okay. You can pick on me. I agree with everybody with his confidence. He carries himself very well. But the beginning, I was kind of wondering, I was also picturing it in my mind. I could see him going in, sitting down, but maybe something leading up to that, going into the conference room. Like Heather said, how he was feeling. I think that human emotion really draws more connection.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Does anyone else want to add other things, or shall I go? Okay. I honestly think you did a really good job, John. Let me add some. So let me give some feedback. I think you could have made it slightly more relatable to the audience. So actually, I can do this two ways. Either I can like retell your story and then give the feedback, or I can give the feedback and then retell it, and then we can see what's different.
Well, I know that you call a spade, so it's all constructive criticism. However you think is best.
Okay,
go.
fine.
If you want to
I'll give
shoot
my
me
kind of
down,
bullet points.
yes.
No. This is all like so we can get better. So write
Sure.
this down. So one thing is, and you'll see how I tell the story, because what I'm going to do in a second, everyone, is I'm going to retell John's story in a more captivating way. I'm going to tell his story, with like just this skill set, which is what you're
Amazing.
going to learn and like take home and implement, and then you can see if it's more captivating. So this is me putting my balls on the line,
Okay.
metaphorically. So how you need to ask yourself every time you tell a story, how do you make this more relatable to the audience? I say this because in an attention economy, it's very like the reason why everyone's like, oh, find out your ICP, find out your ICP, is because if you're not speaking directly to the person you're trying to sell to, they're going to zone out. And even when you tell a story at a dinner table or wherever it is, if you're doing content online, you have to make sure that any fucking story that you tell is super relatable to that person. Think about the lesson, like me telling you guys that lesson, I made that relatable to all of you. Think about that. Because if you guys, like I do this thing like dating communities, for example, I don't talk about making money. I talk about them like being across the dinner table with a girl or something. But I'm making this relevant to you guys so that you tune in. See, even how I'm teaching you is what I'm trying to make you do. ICP stands for Ideal Customer Profile. AKA, you need to really understand the person that you're selling to or trying to persuade. We often forget about this because 90% of people just focused on themselves. And because everyone's focused on themselves, if you can focus on that person and make it relatable to them, they're going to feel more connected into your story and more bought in. You'll see how I do this in a second. John, can I ask, were you reading the script? Or like, was it read?
No,
Was it
no,
like
no, not at all. That was just straight off the top of my head. I didn't just put me in the hot seat and I just rambled.
Okay, cool. So I like to use some words that were like slightly different. For example, jovial, I thought was really good. However, some parts did seem, in terms of your tone of voice, it was just a bit flat, a bit monotone. The problem with not having a varied tone of voice or breaks or pauses in how we communicate is people zone out.
Yes.
So think, does everyone here have Instagram or TikTok or YouTube? We love dopamine. Our brains love it. And so the difficult thing is that when you're going back to the oldest form of media, which is storytelling, you need to be fucking sharp so that people dial in. And that's why change in tonality, pauses, spikes in the emotion are really, really important. And when you do it over the camera, I've said this before, you have to dial it up even 10, 20% more. Because if I'm in person with someone, I don't have to be this extroverted. I don't have to be this wow or this extreme with my, let's say, power. We need to make sure that we vary our tone of voice and what we're saying so that people actually tone in. Okay, and then the other thing is, yes, so Tony picked up on the preamble, setting the scene, but then also it's fantastic if you can give like a summary or a learning at the end. So since the dawn of human time, how did we learn? Did we learn through just reading and studying? No. We learned through stories. So the human brain is 22 times more likely to remember something if it's embedded in a story. Why did I tell you guys that? It's because you are trying to sell online, aka you're trying to educate the audience in some way to come to a new logical point, which is to buy your thing. So if you can embed your sales within a story, they're more likely to buy rather than here are the facts.
Yes.
Make sense?
There was a
Absolutely.
quote that I've heard from somebody else say that we tell bedtime stories for a reason. We don't tell bedtime facts. And that's because the stories is what people will remember.
Love that. Love that. So now what I'm going to do is as I said, I'm going to put my metaphorical balls on the line. I'm going to try, I might butcher this slightly because it's not my story and it's the first time I've heard it. So what I want you guys to do is as I tell this story, don't focus on like if I got his story exactly right, but focus on the actual skill. What specifically am I doing differently to John? And when you rewatch this, you can really see the contrast. And like write this down because after I'm going to ask you what was different so you can see what are the differences because that's what we want to implement into your lives. Ready? Okay. And I'm not perfect, so I'm also open to constructive criticism myself. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys the story about how I completely changed my life over the last 8 months. Because 8 months ago, I was in an office. It was just a normal Monday morning. And maybe you guys have been in that point where you're looking at your screen, you're looking at your Excel sheet, and you're scratching your head thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to meet this quota. I'm not going to meet this sales target. The industry's changed so much. And I ultimately just hate this. I hate this feeling of being trapped behind this desk. Don't know if any of you guys have felt that before, but that's how I felt earlier this year. And I remember this morning so vividly because it seemed like such a normal Monday morning where I had my typical black coffee. And it was funny because I sipped and actually burnt my mouth as my manager walked in. And he walked in and he was like, where are the numbers? You know? And I just remember scratching my head thinking, I can't live like this. This is absolutely not what I want to do. And so I decided to go on a hero's journey. And what I mean by that is that I decided to actually back myself and put myself in the driver's seat of actually taking a life by the balls. And so what I did is I looked into my bank account and I thought, this is really good because I've actually been saving some money. It wasn't a crazy amount, but I've been saving diligently half of everything that I make so that I can be in a position to quit. And it was in that moment where something that snapped inside of me. And I thought, actually, I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to launch my own thing. Finally, after years and months and even decades of just putting off taking life into my own hands, that was a crucial moment of me, which is hilarious. Just that moment of me burning my mouth, thinking I can't put up with this manager's BS. And so what I did is I went online and I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this domain name. And I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. Maybe you guys have been there before. I had absolutely no idea. And I remember as I went to buy this domain name of what now is my business, where I have 11 passive income streams. I've had months on months of doubling my revenue. And I'm now doing really well, even building a community of tech entrepreneurs across the world. It was all in that moment where I remember hovering my mouse over the domain name checkout. And it's funny in retrospect because it was only a $10 purchase of this domain. But me clicking that raised my heart rate through the roof. And I remember that it was when I actually finally committed to taking my life into my hands. And as I said, ever since, I've been actually just going strength after strength. Yes, there's been some ups, there's been some downs, but I'm finally that one step closer to living that life on my dreams. I'm no longer in that office. I'm no longer managed by that guy. I'm no longer burning my mouth over this coffee every Monday morning just to get through a boring day of work. And I'm actually really enjoying it. And so the lesson I want to leave you guys with is that sometimes when the universe presents us that opportunity where we think, this is the time to actually step into my new reality, as scary as that might be, I highly recommend that you take the plunge because you will be rewarded for acting against your fears and just taking the plunge and going for what you want out of life. Now, wasn't a perfect story because it's a bit difficult to do someone else's story, but is it fair to say that that was slightly more engaging than John's?
Definitely. I was just scribbling down some notes while you were reiterating my story, and I found it amazing that you started immediately with change and then directly to relatability. Have you been at this point before, tapping into the feelings, and then blending that into the story of the present moment of where you were this morning in the office, changing that to tension and the direct questions that you got from your sales manager, and then starting off with the framework of the story itself as the hero's journey. There was a lot of facial connection, a lot of hand movements, and even some humor, a little bit of uncertainty, then some of the facts and the details, and the connection to your heart and the personal journey, the lessons that you learned along the way, and then finally the summary and the reward that you attained at the end.
This is the thing. This is the skill I'm trying to teach you guys. Like that was the same story, more or less. Okay, it's quite difficult. I don't have it all written down. I'm like doing the skill and it's in here, but more or less that's the exact same story, and yet this is more captivating. And if we go back to what I said before, like attention is the new currency, and so if you guys can actually develop this skill, which you can, because I wasn't like this before. You can ask Tony, can attest to this. You will simply make more money because this works on sales calls. It works when you're at dinners surrounded by these people, whoever it is. This just works. This just works. And so for us to actually implement this into our own lives, John, that was really helpful, the high level notes. Let's go around one by one. What's something that you took away from how I did that? And let's implement it into your own lives. And then I can actually break down something which I think is really impactful and really important when it comes to you guys selling your offers online, called frame control. So,
May I jump in? Oh, sorry,
please.
go ahead. I just wanted to say that when you were telling that story, I didn't like to think of myself as self-centered, but you said you would kind of make it more personal to the receiver of the message. When you talked about burning your mouth with the coffee, I thought that was incredibly it sort of really sort of jarred my emotions because I was thinking of the way I bit my lip earlier when I was watching something on the TV, and all of a sudden, although you're telling your story, you use that kind of universal, the hero's journey, and then it related immediately to an actual physical sensation I had of actually biting my lip a little bit earlier. And I was with you, and like I said, I didn't want to think of myself as self-centered, but your story was carrying me along on almost like a parallel journey. So I was almost like a little bit hypnotized, by the way that story, which I'll say to John, it's like a second draft of your story, right? It brought me in that much deeper. So there's also value in that second draft of the story. Thank you.
If I could just have a moment as well, yes, I can completely relate to that because when Piero spoke about clicking the mouse on the domain and his heart rate going up, I can actually remember sitting on that website and the uncertainty of the name and the package and everything. And just like he said, even though it was just a small amount of money to pay, the nerves that he brought along with it, totally relatable, exactly what you said now, just as though I was on a parallel journey of my own experiences through his feelings. Absolutely agree with you there, Tony.
And what's crazy is I wasn't there. Like I made this up on the spot. And you can do the same. Now, like something to take away is whenever you tell a story, I really recommend that you just reference like a little detail that is super relatable to your everyday person. So, for example, high level things that I can recommend that I can think of right now. It's like burning my tongue. That's the first time I've ever used that. Something like that. You can talk about, that like I had that sweaty feeling on my palms before I was about to make this decision. You can talk about your heart rate going up. You can talk about, maybe I could have said, for example, and I was so nervous before I made this decision that I actually remember walking into the bathroom and just staring into my own eyes. And that moment when you just stare into your own eyes in the mirror and just everything pauses for a moment because you're about to take a really deep plunge. Well, that's exactly where I was at. And so I washed my face and then I went back and I took that plunge and I bought the domain. See, another very easy example is just looking in the mirror. You can maybe talk about like, I remember feeling so nervous that I started to be a bit fidgety. That's something that's relatable.
I like how you use the bathroom mirror and washing your hands and feeling the water over your hands
Yeah.
the first time that I talked to you. What I like that you did a little bit different this time is you also when you had that relatable thing that you're talking about, like the racing heart, have you ever felt that way? And you pulled people in by asking that question and almost demanding that they pay attention to you by asking that question, which I think is brilliant. Um, and then you also said a few times, what I did was this, or what I did was, what I did was. And I instantly kept thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, what did he do? Which drew me in too.
Now, thank you for sharing that. So that's basically like rehooking people into the story. When you tell a fantastic story, as Tony said, you're essentially hypnotizing people. And as you put someone into this hypnotic trance, into this state, you want to take them and make sure that they stay in that state. Now you can do that by re-hooking people this like into this story. So this is a bit random side note, but have any of you guys ever been hypnotized or like done any type of hypnosis thing? So if you've ever been hypnotized, what they do is they'll like hypnotize you, and then they'll basically be like, okay, and then like as your eyes are about to open, you feel them get suddenly deeper. And what they do is they kind of spike you back, and you kind of go like this, down and down and down into a deeper and deeper and deeper state of hypnosis. And when you tell a fantastic story, you want to rehook people in, because what it does is it gets them deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this trance. And if you can put people into this trance, you can make a fuck ton of money. Excuse my French.
And I think you can see those tells, those signs, those little cues as well while you're speaking to people as well, just by their eye movements. What you said now while you were explaining that, I could feel myself blinking between your pauses. And I thought, okay, that's where the tell is.
Yeah.
Is there any overlap with sort of neuro-linguistic programming words? Are there any sort of like sort of sensitive adjectives or superlatives or sort of key trigger words that might be used for when you're going through this process? So you're using words that have physical and physical sensations, but also some kind of like words that you would suggest to sort of deepen that trance or kind of draw or seduce the listener.
So let me see if I can find it in this notes. 1 second. Because to be like just fully transparent, I'm not a pro at NLP, so I don't want to pretend like I know all these like crazy words and stuff to get people drawn in. But from what I understand, like NLP is just basically putting people into a trance using your words. And because I'm not certified and I haven't trained in NLP, I'm kind of like in a different way teaching it to you guys, by just through my just sheer volume of just going out and learning to tell fantastic stories to some of the most sought after people on earth.
Piero has
So
a lot of overlap into NLP. A lot of the things that you say, even though you're not certified in it, they come directly from NLP.
yeah. Sorry, Tony, what was your exact question? What are like specific words to bring people in?
Yeah, I was wondering, along with the sensations that you've described and these kind of triggers, whether you had any kind of like seductive language, words or triggers or anything like that that might deepen the trance that you kind of or this kind of mindset that you're leading your viewers or listeners into,
So
or even to startle them to spike that dopamine, perhaps.
sure. So something that I do, and I'm trying to do more and more, which I'd recommend you guys doing, is if you watch this replay back, you can see how I go about it. Is I keep switching between I and you. It's a very good thing. What you do is you end up disarming the person that is listening to you, and you end up disarming that person's mind, so they actually just draw more and more attention to you. Now, you know what's funny? Instead of me saying like I disarm that person and I make it so this person's brain turns off, I said it in you form, but I started that learning with me, so I kind of just did it there as well.
It's
So
amazing what you just said there, because in email marketing, when we're doing script writing, it's a specific framework to use the word you 20 times more than what you use the word I.
but what you do is you start, or what I do is I start with me and then I switch it to you, but I don't like make it an obvious switch. So for example, I remember that feeling when I burnt my burnt my mouth on the coffee. And you know when you burn your mouth on the coffee, you just think, I can't believe I did that.
And that's a question.
It's very silly. Like you just switch. You start the thing with the I, like I did this, and then you instantly switch to you, because then I think this is NLP, because then you're basically just like directing them to think certain things, and you're directing that person to feel certain emotions that you felt. And that is the putting the person in a hypnotic state.
It's so interesting because in marketing, we learn about so much about walking in your client's shoes, and yet what you've done there is quite different, because it's as though you're getting the viewer to walk in your shoes for a split second.
I honestly think like your biggest takeaway that I'd like the single biggest thing I'd like you guys to take away from today is just truly understanding what I said before is your ICP, who you're trying to sell to, who you're trying to influence. The reason why that is so important for you guys is because when you can really understand who exactly it is that you're trying to sell to, or trying to influence, or who you're trying to tell a story to, what will happen for you is you can craft any message, any like sales pitch, any story to that person and make it hyper relatable. Because in making it hyper relatable, you're going to speak to that person and then they're going to be more drawn in. You'll see I constantly do it throughout even this training. Like I'm kind of doing it live whilst teaching you about it. Thanks, Edgar. Is I make this like everything that I teach you guys, I make it really relatable to you. The reason I make it really relatable to you is so that you are more focused, more locked in, and if I wanted to pitch to you guys, you'd be more bought into me.
So in essence, like what Tony was saying with NLP is the like foundation of NLP is to create that rapport with someone else. And so that's what you're doing through the storytelling is really opening up that rapport with whoever it is that you're wanting to tell that story to, whether it's for a sale or even just to like get them to lean into you and actually open up a little bit more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say because by really understanding who you're trying to sell to, who you're trying to convince, you can then craft your messaging to that person on the fly, which will allow you to sell to them or to convert to them. For instance, if I was in a room and all of you guys were B2B, or if I was in a boardroom, which I often am in, I do not speak as, let's say, liberally. I don't swear. I don't. I wouldn't talk about some of these, or if I were to talk about these personal things, I would ask them about their lives first, and then if they give me anything, I would then relate it to that. So, for example, I recently sold like a really big software deal to a local or to one of the government agencies in the Middle East, and the lady that is kind of in charge of that from their side, she loves to travel, and so throughout all of the pitches, it's very silly, but I would make the little asides that would reference traveling, because she always flies first class, for example. And so for something that I use is I would say, well, look, this is like when you're looking at because our software is more expensive. And I was like, well, look, this is like choosing between, Emirates or Fly Dubai. They're both going to get you there, but one is obviously a way better customer experience, which is going to mean for you, your customers are going to come back again and again and again. And so I want you guys to implement this into whatever you guys sell, which is understanding who you're trying to sell to, so you can make whatever you say in the modality, or whatever you say and whatever you're trying to sell to them, more relevant to them. Now, we still have 20 minutes, and I want to make this as relevant to you guys as possible, or so you guys get the most out of it. I can take the rest of the session a few different ways. So I want you guys to guide me, because I can either talk about frame control, which I think is very important and like the perceived value, or I can double down onto the storytelling, or we can talk about sales and psychology. What do you guys think would be, or what do you guys feel would be the most valuable for you? Or shall I just rip? Frame control. Okay.
Would it be possible to get an
storytelling.
overview?
Sure. So I think I'll focus on the frame control piece, to be honest. I'll give you the high level. So when I truly, so Linese, this is exactly the same thing. So how I got into and how I got accepted at rooms where I sat next to billionaires, and I've dated some of the most attractive people on earth in Dubai, where it's like very highly competitive, let's say, is by truly understanding frame control, where you can flip the buyer-seller dynamic. Now, the reason why this is so important to you guys is because a lot of you want to, or all of you are trying to sell something online. Now, I'd argue that this one skill is like the matrix being unfolded when you can kind of understand this, because it allows you to at least start to understand, how do I get someone to sell themselves on whatever I'm selling them? Does that make sense? I can say that again. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But ultimately, the high level thing before I go into this is that whenever you are selling, you can either force the prospect to buy, right? But that is not as good as you forcing the prospect to convince themselves to buy. How many times have we bought something and we just sell ourselves on the thing? I've done it so many times. I always do it. You know, it can be something kind of dumb. Like, for example, for me, when I was like buying my motorbike this year, like it made no logical sense that my first ever motorbike was 1000cc. And yet I fully sold myself on that idea that, okay, I need a 200 horsepower bike as my first motorbike. Like, I fully sold myself, even though everything else was selling me against it. Even the guy himself, he was like, I'm not sure if I want to hand you over these keys. But I was so sold myself on the idea that I went and I bought it anyway. Now, understanding frame control is you being able to do this to your prospects, and you being able to do this at a dinner table or whoever you want to influence. So, shall I start to break it down? You guys bought in? Okay, awesome. Let me reshare my screen.
I think this is such a cool concept because it happens in family dynamics a lot where, you've got the mom and the dad and they're a little bit on two different ideas of what they should, of what should be done. And the kids will come in and they'll be like, well, we really want this, mom. And mom's on board, but we got to get dad on board. But we need to let dad make it his idea because that's the only way that it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good example to use. By the way, as I break this down, I'll give you guys my Instagram. You can follow me there. And I have a free community as well if you guys would like to join. I'll send you the invite in case you guys aren't here. Or Heather, do you want to send the invite?
Yeah, we'll have them get the invitations through
through
either John or my community.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You can do that. Okay, so I'm about to break down what I'd argue is one of the most important things in the online space, or just sales, or just fucking life, to be honest with you, that I really don't see anyone else break online or like break down online. And I honestly think that it's because it's so powerful if this can click for you. So it's to it's to understand this. This is you. And I will apologize in advance for my terrible drawings. This is you. Now, you will view absolutely everybody into three categories. You will view that person above you, the same as you, or below you. Okay? Now, let's use an example. A lot of you guys are in affiliate spaces, right? Why is it that these top affiliates flex online? The reason they flex online is because it positions themselves as above wherever you are. And so you're more likely to buy from them. It positions themselves as up here. Now, I'm going to use some like different analogies. If you guys wanted to let's say you guys wanted to work with me. Would you ever want to pay me if you viewed me as below you? No. If you viewed me as the same as you, at most you would just want to be my friend and kind of have like a mutual exchange. But if you wanted to actually buy from me and learn from me, you'd have to in some way view me above you and view that I have something that you don't have. So I'm positioned above you. The reason I'm telling you this is because if you want to sell online, you have to do the same to your audience. Let's break down dating. Any attractive person, right? Like all people in general, we just want our lives to improve. And so in a dating sense, for example, it's like, okay, well, this person, like if you're a girl, you typically want to date someone that you look up to or respect in some capacity, you know? And typically from guys' perspective, girls will have something that guys don't have, which is typically is like the beauty angle. And so we always want to go up in our lives, whether it's in our investing in ourselves, whether it's in our dating lives, whether it's in our actual just normal relationships, because we just want to improve. Like that's like literally our biological drive is to go forward, is to go up. Now, this is the funny thing, and this is when the matrix kind of unfolded, at least for me. Now, let's say you walked outside of your house today and you walked along the street, just your normal street on the way to the grocery store. And as you're walking, you see a guy. And this guy, he's slumped over. He looks sweaty. He looks passed out on the floor. But he's got a hoodie on over his face, and he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels. What's the whiskey? Bottle of whiskey in his hand, right? And you think to yourself, bloody hell, this guy's had a rough night. Now, if I told you guys that just like now, and I said, would any of you want to connect with that person? What would you say? No. Okay. Now, why would you not want to connect with that person?
Because your viewer is below you.
Yeah, because you view that person down here. X marks the spot. What if I told you that that person was actually Leonardo DiCaprio? And the reason he's passed out with a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand is because last night he won the Golden Globes. Would you now want to at least help him or speak to him or be his buddy? Probably.
Heck yeah, I would help him, and then hopefully he'd give me like a little bonus for helping him off the ground.
No, we would though. We would. And it's
You
very
know that just
important
by
to
his name, he has
understand this.
influence.
It's
Yes,
very, very
influence.
important to understand this because this is this is what's funny with our brains. We're very lazy creatures. And so the reason, even though we're taught not to read a book by its cover, we do. And so what we do is we look at these quick status signals. I tell you, there's a guy outside and he's like, he looks fucking homeless. Excuse me. He looks homeless. He's got a bottle of whiskey in his hand. You instantly think this guy is homeless because your brain doesn't want to actually process and your brain is too lazy to actually do the work and think, is this guy actually homeless? Like, should I like dive deeper into it? No, we're lazy creatures. We don't want to do it. So we'll just make a snap judgment. Now, this is the exact same in marketing. And this is why top marketers, they're very good at positioning themselves as high authority. This is what I do with top founders. I actually just teach them this so they can do it in their own personal lives and do it in any room. And they can actually do it online as well. It's actually really understanding this, which is there is a disparity and a disconnect between perceived value and real value. I want to let that land. The perceived value of Leonardo DiCaprio at the start was zero, was negative. But his real value was like through the roof. But the thing is that we judge off the perceived value. And that is a sad reality. And I've met so many guys in Dubai. I really started to click for me because when I was in Dubai and I was with all these people that just make silly amounts of money online, sometimes it's not even fully true, like how much they make. But by them inflating it, it increases their perceived value so high that it allows them to do what? Well, it allows them to sell to everyone below them. So a takeaway for all of you guys is that whenever you're trying to sell to someone, you need to make sure that in some capacity, you look, maybe it's more put together than that person. Maybe it's higher status. Maybe it's just slightly, I don't know, better in some way. That's one thing, is the visual. But also what we can do, which is through our behavioral cues, which is what I'm about to teach you, is we can question people. Who here has taken sales training? Okay. When you do a sales call, do you qualify yourself or do you get the prospect to qualify themselves to you?
You qualify the prospect through needs analysis.
Yeah, you get the prospect to qualify themselves, right? You're like, why would you, like, if you're really good at sales, you would get the prospect to sell themselves. You would get the prospect to say, oh, you would say to the prospect, why do you think you're such a good fit for my program? And the prospect would say, oh, because, I'm going to like work really hard and I'm going to get this result. And then you would say something like, well, everyone tells me that, so what makes you different from them? And what you do there is you make the prospect jump through hoops. Now, only someone that is higher status than that person can make someone jump through hoops for them. Because you can position yourself as a pack leader without actually being the pack leader. That's what I'm teaching you. Now, it's difficult, but if you can do this, and it gets very easy when you start to understand this, you can very quickly make a lot of money. So what I'm trying to say is that any of you that take online sales calls, you need to make sure that you make the prospect qualify themselves to you. Did that land?
Yes, basically what you're saying is when you have them qualify themselves to you, it opens up the communication so you know as the seller what ways to approach them so that you can stay in rapport with them and move forward. They then in essence do exactly what you just said before, which was sell themselves on whatever it is that you're offering.
Yes, I think in the methods that I've learned so far, you would ask a number of questions specific to the client's needs, and then they would answer accordingly, and then you would reiterate those questions to them. So you said to me, Heather, that, etc., etc., etc. Is that right? How would that make you feel? Where do you see yourself going with that, etc.? And then that then would close the needs analysis process, and in turn also cause them to visualize it and close themselves by making statements in return.
See, I agree with that. However, I will caveat it, which is I believe that um, the market started to evolve. And what I mean by that is if you two use this really typical sales terms and sales analogy, so much of the market in this day and age has been sold to in some capacity. And so if you do the typical sales process and the typical sales stuff of like, how does that make you feel? And use a really basic terminology. Sorry,
Yes.
not to go into this, John. But what then happens, or the problem with this, because I've been there myself, is that your buyer will then just switch off and your buyer will recognize, hang on, this is a trick. So what you need to do is you need to go in almost covert and go in as a spy.
You could also use that relatability term as well, where you could say yes, and you could tell a short story about what they've just answered to it. Yes, this is how I relate to it, and do you agree with that? Rather than just using the how does it make you feel terminology that you've just said.
It's just something. So if any of you guys have sales scripts, all I'm recommending that you do is like actually read through your script and just try, if you can, just tweak it slightly so it doesn't sound as typical or like everyone else's, because simply the market has evolved.
Yes.
Like if you were doing affiliate 10 years ago, it was way easier than doing it today. It still works today. You can still make a lot of money with it today, but you just have to look at the marketplace and recognize that it's evolved a bit. That's all I'm telling you guys. The reason why is because so much of the market has been burnt before. How many of you, for example, have bought some type of online course and it just been an absolute scam in a way? Because I have. Probably a lot of us. We pay for something online and we're like, what the fuck is this? Wasting my money. And so you need to make sure that you are not positioned like that and you separate yourselves in some way. So if I go back to this diagram, it's recognizing that everyone views each other as either the same as them, above them, or below them. And what you need to do is you need to understand you need to detach perceived value from real value. and recognize that you can actually manipulate the perceived value. You can do this in the following ways. You can make the person answer questions and jump through hoops for you. 1. 2. You can use humor. Sounds very silly, but it works very, very well. The reason why humor works so well is, does anyone want to guess actually? Why does humor work in terms of manipulating where you are on this podium or on this trident?
I
Because
would say
when
it's
people
because
laugh with you,
everyone wants to laugh. Everybody wants to have a good time. And so when you can make someone laugh, it like drops their guard.
Yeah, but if we're going back to the perceived, or like where you're positioned in terms of status. Now, if I put you next to the King of England, would you make a risky joke in front of him?
of course not.
Because everything in your body says that this person is what higher value than you. And so what I'm trying to say is that when you can inject even like a little bit of humor in your sales calls or in your messaging online, it positions yourself as a higher authority, because only someone that is higher authority is actually detached from the outcome and doesn't give enough of a shit to use humor. Does that make a bit of sense?
Yes.
So how I get into these rooms with really influential people and why they like me is because I'm not afraid to use humor. And me using such brash, kind of wildish humor at times just positions me up here. And in their heads, subconsciously, they're like, oh, well, clearly this guy must be more successful than me if he's or like if he's willing enough to use this level of humor on me. Because if I'm up here, I can use all the humor I want because I don't care if I fail, right? That's ultimately it. But ironically, if you actually act like you don't care and like don't act out of scarcity, you will not fail. Because everywhere, as you go through life, everyone else will qualify themselves to you. And because humans are humans, this works at all levels. If I wanted to date a celebrity, I would just be as funny and as cocky as I am as if I wanted to date, I don't know, just like some random person. Like, if you want to become friends with celebrities, you have to understand, like, okay, all I need to do is just be funny with them and not care. Because everyone else in their life tries to qualify themselves to them. Like, everyone else instantly is like, oh, can I have a photo with you? And instantly puts themselves down here, which means there is no chance at all of that person connecting with them. Now, if I, for example, let's say, I don't know, met Margot Robbie, whoever it is, and I just like made jokes with her and like didn't give a crap. Well, in the back of her head, she'd either think, oh, this guy is cool, or she'd think, who the fuck is this guy? Why is this guy acting like this? And like, is he an investor? Like, is he worth more than me in some way? And you know what's funny? Is by making that person think, you get that person to invest in you in some capacity. Because we all value what we invest in, and we invest in something how? With time, energy, focus, or money. Now, when you make someone ask themselves questions, what happens is that person is then investing them into you in some capacity. What's also good, if we go back to the storytelling, is when you tell a fantastic story, as you put that person into more and more of an hypnotic trance, that person is basically investing in you in some capacity because they're living or they're reimagining your story. And so their brain capacity is used up all on you.
That's amazing. It's amazing because I'm thinking about all the different connections that I've had and the different presentations that I've done. And some of the most successful ones is just like you say, Piero, when you're completely natural and when there's that slight pause of silence, even you just take up the space, even drop a little bit of humor, or even just create that relatability once again.
Like for example, me with all of you guys today, if I came on and I was really nervous, if I wasn't making any jokes, if I was like very reserved, I don't think you'd pay as much attention.
Definitely.
Because you'd kind of think like, who the fuck is this guy? But instead, what I've done is, because I actually really understand this, is because I am genuinely world class at my craft. You guys are like, who the fuck is this guy in the best way possible? Like, I want to spend some time with this guy. Like, that's why Heather like joined my community and like that's why I'm here right now. And so I want you guys to take away two big things today. Number one, you can control any room by starting to and I'm gonna put more stuff in my Raw Dogs community as I actually get time. But number one is to understand social hierarchy and the disconnect between perceived value and real value. And what you need to focus on to sell is manipulating in the best way possible your perceived value so that people view yourselves or people view you as an authority figure. In doing so, they will buy from you. That's number one. Number two, which is super, super important, is to really understand your ideal customer profile, the person that you're trying to influence, the person that you're trying to sell to. The reason why I say that is because you can't manipulate this dynamic if you don't understand who the person is that you're trying to, quote unquote, manipulate is not a good word, but influence.
Yes.
Because you can't speak to that avatar. And the market's more competitive. So if any of you guys are doing any type of online marketing or social media, you need to be very narrow with who you're targeting so you actually can start to develop. Now, I'll actually leave you with like a little thing. Let me just see if I can find it. Because it actually, I thought it was really good. One second. This is slightly different, but I think it explains it really well. If any of you guys are like stuck with like niche and like, okay, but I'd rather just start really broad and then kind of go from there. This is the problem. Like, if you actually want to make money, you need to understand that your niche, your first niche, if you can see this diagram, your first niche ideally is a subset of your other niches down the line. And so a lot of work that people often have to do, I was talking to this about John, is narrowing down who is that first person that you want to sell to. Once you've sold to absolutely everyone in that niche, you can expand to niche 1 and 2. Instead of niche, you can think of customer avatar. Once that's done, you can go to 1, 2, and 3. But don't go past niche 1 until you've made at least $500,000. This is how it will work. You will sell to niche 1 or person 1 or influence person 1. You will make good amount of money. Once you have done that, you can reinvest into yourself and you can actually start to reap the rewards of your success that are starting to go upwards. And you can expand who you then sell to, and you sell to niche 1 and 2. And you basically get this parabolic success curve, because I've seen this time and time and time again, and I'm doing it myself. So I do have a dinner to go to. That was hopefully a bit of a mic drop for you all. What do you guys want to leave? What are some of your biggest takeaways from today? 2 or 3? And then I'll bounce.
Lanice, why don't you share?
There's she typing.
We don't care if we can hear the kiddos in the back. I'm trying to force her out of her comfort zone here.
I like that, Heather. Christy, any takeaway? I'll have to bounce in a sec.
Yeah. I like how you said something about manipulating the perceived value. That really makes a lot of sense because, as humans, we see what we see without looking outside the box, that tunnel vision. So I like that.
Without sounding too conspiracy theorist, when this starts to click in your head properly, this is like detaching from the matrix. Because every single piece of marketing that happens to you online, you will then just see straight through it.
Right.
And you'll start to ask yourself, what is actually at play here?
Yeah, that was an eye opener.
Can you
Okay.
share the links with me or with the people? With everyone, sorry.
I will go ahead and share. Lenice, go ahead real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, okay. So first of all, thank you for pronouncing my name like correctly from the start. That is always a big thing for me because people have weird ways of pronouncing my name. So that definitely drew me in at first. And then yes, thank you for the tips. I really learned a lot because I think I am shy. Like from nature wise, I'm shy, but when I get with Heather, I'm like all over the place. So I would love to get there with more people. So I hope if I then apply these skills and tips that I will get to that level and get more comfortable. So thank you so much.
Can I just leave you with a little nugget of gold that helped me become less shy? This might sound a bit weird, but I'll leave you with it. So view yourself as a ball of light, and you're trying to just give as much good as possible into the world. Now, the problem is that when you're shy and when you don't actually communicate in an effective manner and you don't actually put yourself out there, what you're doing is you're covering this light because you're not allowing people to properly meet you and you're not allowing people to actually speak to you and experience you. And so imagine you've got this ball of light, you're basically putting like a pan over it or like a cloth over it by being shy and not talking to people and not going out there and not expressing yourself and not putting content out there. And so I'm sharing this because it helped me in terms of being like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to start posting content and just start speaking to more people. Because I genuinely view it now, and you can get to this point, it doesn't take long, Denise, where like you not sharing yourself out there or not putting yourself out there is you, in an almost weird way, being selfish and not actually just giving the world what it needs, which is you.
Thank
So
you.
It's as though you're functioning from the heart instead of from the mind, instead of overthinking it, and sort of going 3 steps ahead in what people are going to actually accept me or not accept me from. You just bring that attention from your thoughts and all the concerns down to your heart, and you just function straight from the heart and just be true, authentic you, and let people accept it or reject it. Simple as that.
Oh,
exactly.
great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Hopefully it helps. I
Thank
really
you
enjoyed
so
today's
much.
session. Oh,
Amazing.
sorry.
No, I was just going to say thank you so much for joining us and for being so willing to jump in at the last second. Like you're just like, well, let's just do it. I'm like, okay.
100%. Right, you guys were a great audience, so thank you for your time. Really value you all, and hope you guys have a great week. Find me on Instagram.